The mid slot is where Chorosaurus Guardian should have had 2 cat boosters. That's where the mid slot should have been. Wow. I had the worst dream last night. I dreamed that Jamil got killed and then a Eudoric replaced her. It was horrible.
Wow, people are already asthmatic about Empress cash money like less than 24 hours after.
Yeah. It's like the second verse after Candid. I mean.
It's okay.
Alright, mate.
It's okay when the Elder Fleet shows up.
Angry, gritted teeth falling off.
Gemma will come back again.
I wish that I
It's a
had.
drifter to also blow up the
I
amount.
wish I had given Lysis my Guardian fitting. They would have won. If Lysis had had my Guardian fitting, they would have won. But sadly, they never had their Guardian.
No, Denny, don't leave!
I should probably know this, but which friggin' river we
Go Dixie.
Go Dixie.
I want to find out what's happening to
I
his
shot him.
I've just got an early question. Has there been any meetings in this room which this room wasn't too small for?
Actually, the ISD panel.
We had players this year.
There's actually a picture of me holding this and crying. Somebody deliberately started talking about Jamil to make that effect happen. So it would make a better picture. I am friends with Zeus.
You play Eve.
I do play Eve, yes.
You're just perpetually waving to you across the goal.
Okay, we're just waiting on CCP Kennedy. She thought this was an album for now. She's been incredibly busy on Fanfest, so it's exciting. Yeah, I just came from there in the community roundtable, like, wanted my ass. I don't want all of them. Well, I'll take like ones to stick around the office.
Wait a second.
Can you get me 5 little ones too? I just like sticking little things all over the office. And I also, I have a decorated,
actually on Hiker's
I have a new rig at home because I built a new PC. And I had a big hydrostatic sticker on my old box, but it wouldn't fit on the new one, so I was really sad. But now I can put it on the new one as well. Pretty happy.
Yeah, it'll be a couple of minutes.
Thank you.
Wow, holy shit.
You sure this is the form panel, not PvP zone?
Maybe not accidentally stumble into no second song.
No fussy here.
I have some thoughts for that too, but they're not as strong as my thoughts about Jamil.
the opinions here might be stronger.
No, yeah. The opinions here. We care about more stuff.
It is a nice picture though. It's one of my favorite pieces of our artwork chronicles. It's really nice.
And then you killed her.
The drifters did. They were just
Maybe.
It wasn't us. It actually wasn't. It was a really, really advanced AI.
Autonomous entity decided
the GTFO after they moved here is because of the super carriers. The black yeah. It's like
boom! Peace out, boys. Ooh. Try to play.
Thank you.
No. Yeah, it's like
I tried to
Stick it here.
I was also wondering whether I'd be able to.
Huh?
I was also wondering if this tea machine is functional.
I believe it's a coffee machine.
It's an. I thought it was an espresso machine, yeah. Although it doesn't look on. Half the pencils.
If anybody has Jamil's corpse in this room, you get bridged there.
There are a couple places in this room where you might.
If I was ever feed her to the drift.
There are multiple.
No.
Someone noticed that I kept on getting interrupted when I was walking places really fast. So he just came over and stuck a roller coaster up. And I'm like, alright, this fixes things. Yeah.
The spread is smaller.
Someone with 6 points across their back. And a web.
We just have a
We don't have this, we got more
I
tournaments.
got that given to me.
We have tournaments.
But I'm fast, so it doesn't fit on my fingers. Like, I've got to put sausage fingers. Is it time?
It's time.
Yeah.
We're so formal about stuff.
Close the door. We don't
Yeah,
get to see
close the door.
Make it real. There's no lots to be screaming and yelling and going on.
I think the first thing we should have done is next year, we need a bigger room. That's been super amazing to see how the crowd's kind of grown from last year. Every year on year, this roundtable just keeps getting bigger and bigger, which is a good sign for us at least. I think it's nice to see so many people taking an interest in backstory. So I guess what do we want to do for format? Random.
Yeah, last year I think this was at the same time as some other major roundtable.
Yeah, possibly. See, I managed the schedule for Fanfest this year, so I made sure it wasn't. You guys probably see. So yeah, I guess it's just basically kind of an open discussion, I would say. Questions and answers, the same thing we've done every year. And kind of just free-flowing conversation. There's some things obviously that we won't be able to talk about, but because we don't want to spoil surprises that might be down the road. But by all means, if any of you guys have questions, comments, stuff like that, or suggestions for things that you'd like to see, then by all means, knock yourselves out and we'll have a chat.
Well, with yesterday's outcome, how are you guys feeling?
I'm super happy. Relieved. Relieved that it wasn't fucking Carnage. If it had been Carnage, I think it would have been super interesting, but it would have been super complicated as well, I think.
This room would be very, very hostile.
I'm super
What
happy.
would that mean for Kai?
That was a really big question.
Yeah.
I'm super happy because Kariz was the person I wanted to see on the throne, just for something different, just to give us a different ability to sort of have a little bit of fun with the Amarr and then do something a little bit outside the box from what we've done in the past. Yeah, well now it's done and dusted. Like I wasn't gonna go out and support someone before the event. That wouldn't have been right. But yeah, I mean the outcome was thankfully what I wanted to see, definitely.
I'm just pleased I don't have to find all the references to Empress and game changer.
Okay, so my question, you obviously did a lot with the Amarr in terms of changing it. Can you run us through some of your processes to why you decide to kill Her Majesty, and then how you planned for it, and then just through, because that's a pretty big event. I mean that's pretty groundbreaking for lore. And so if you could just run it through how you did all that, that would be really interesting and heartbreaking.
And also with General dying, it was like an instant blast. You didn't have a chance to affect it.
Was that? Have you seen the Drifter?
Have you seen what happens when you kiss Drift as well?
Yeah, I've seen that, but just from a player interaction standpoint, I would have liked to be able to influence. We had
It was surprisingly quick, I will say that.
Was it really unexpected that it was going to happen like that?
This is the nature of how drifters work. I think it's just they get the job done. But,
I mean, the way the alpha strike and the instantaneous, if you like, death of General has had mixed reactions. Some people like it, some people don't like it. Some people make the player, the players can have a chance to affect it point, which is totally understandable. But I don't think it's a good idea to go into the why we as a storyline group decided to kill General. But I think there was an honesty to the way she was if you say honesty to the way it happened. It's clear that that honesty and clarity of that is a good thing. We all do appreciate that the players, you guys like to affect the storyline.
I felt like
I think the Amarr Championship is the big compensation. I mean, that is the definition of players affecting the storyline.
So can I give you my silver magnate for Jamal back?
I think as a follow-up to that, we didn't even have a chance to attack the grifters once they had done it. Was that a design thing, or is that just an AI thing they left so immediately afterwards?
I think they knew that
They left
some
because there
players
was
would be,
super caps on the field, I think.
and some players would also be so angry that they would want, and why would you stick around when you don't have to?
There were super caps on the field?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was full Royal Guard on the field.
Drifters of GTFO and
But I think like if you could make things happen with the Saren, like General Stargazer storyline to make her seem like a less powerful character, and I think we kind of wanted her to go out in a blaze of glory in a way that like nothing she could have done or any character she could have done could have saved her life. So it's not like if she was a more powerful character she would have survived. That was just not the case.
I mean, as well as that, like, it's a bit of a sort of a morbid thing to talk about, but if you look at actual assassinations of heads of state, you never see it coming. Like, look at, for instance, what happened to Kennedy. Like, no one was like, we must save Kennedy, dive in front of the bullet. It was like, wow, his head just exploded. Like, and that's how it was. Like, this is the way that it happens. Like, and if anything, like, for me, I felt that kind of, the shock of it just happening and everyone being real and like, what the fuck, was like more of an impact for me than like maybe a battle that might have happened or something like that.
It took me a month to write about that. Like, it took me a month to process that.
Like at the same time, like,
that's what it should be.
Imagine we have like a chance to like save her, and then we fail, and like how we feel after that, or we succeed, and how like we feel after that. Like, don't get me wrong, like the Amarr Championship was the most fun I ever had in Eve, and I'm glad they happened. But at the same time, I feel like that event in the vacuum could have been done better.
Yeah, I mean, the event happened with the premise that the Amarr Championships were going to happen after it. So it was, if anything, it was like a key turning point for the Amarr Championships to happen. And I think we got, for me at least, in terms of viewership, one of the most enjoyable tournaments we've ever had out of it.
Yeah.
A lot of showmanship, a lot on the line as well.
I never thought I'd be able to participate in something like that, and
exactly,
I did.
And it was great. I mean, it was really nice to see so many loyalists come out of the woodwork, and so many people sort of put their flag in the ground, basically. It was great, and it was also good as well to see some people who aren't necessarily really involved in backstory and who aren't really that interested in lore to think, hey, there's some really good prizes on the line. Like, how do I get involved with this? And then getting sucked into it and actually enjoying the backstory and the lore side of it. Like for us, like for me at least, that's the most rewarding thing when you have someone who's like, usually sat there like, lol, RP, and like turns around and they're like, wow, this is actually great and I can see why people do this. Like, even if it's only like a temporary thing during the tournament, it at least gives them an appreciation.
But I think with putting more of the events and more of the ongoing backstory, like in the game, the Crimson Harvest and the stuff after Christmas and the Citadel launch, I think we've seen a big uptake and like people are actually, they wouldn't admit they were interested in the backstory.
I mean, look at the size of the crowd in the room now, you know what I mean? It's like,
does this translate to any of the core empires then where there'll be something where people can shape the landscape in the state or the federation, or does it translate at all?
I'd like to think that eventually, like obviously we're not going to sit in this room and make promises because we don't know what the road's going to be like in terms of the jobs that we do, but I mean, the perfect vision is that you guys have an impact on as much as possible, but there's like 3 of us, so it can be kind of difficult at times to, and we've also all got full-time jobs as well, so it can be difficult at times to like to keep on top of making sure that everything happens like clockwork and that at this time every single day or every single week or whatever something's happening. But as much as possible, we'd like to be able to give avenues for you guys to interact with backstory.
Could we get Galente Capsler run for president?
We got this told. Can we vote on that?
As a violence, do we have anything
but there are
to
many
gain
votes.
from that kind of thing occurring? I mean, if we've seen a head of state, if we've seen, like the Amarr Empire is the largest empire, we've seen their leader headshotted. Do we have, like, is Rodden next on the list? Like, do we have anything to fear?
Hopefully.
always be afraid. No, it's one of those things where I think, I don't know, we just like made a conscious decision to like look at where we could change things, and we felt it was the right time for Sarum, and then it's opened up a lot of doors for us in terms of writing new and interesting stuff. And that doesn't just relate to the Amarr Empire, it relates to reactions by other factions to what's going on in the Empire as well. So it's not just all about the Golden Throne, it's, there's a lot of stuff that it will affect. And as well as that, I mean, there's other stuff that will be coming up for different factions that people can get involved with as well. We've seen Blood Raider stuff, we've seen Barista stuff, there's Serpenta stuff coming up in the summer, like you guys have seen in the keynote. So it's always there, and I think it's best to sort of like chop and change and focus on different things now and again, just to give a decent spread of content.
So with the end of the championship, the Amarr Championship, about how much longer do we expect to continue riding this golden wave of Amarr story, or is it going to start wrapping up shortly?
Well, obviously we have to have a coronation. You've seen that there's some stuff coming along with the Shadow of the Serpent that was trailed, ingenious little trail. I thought that was fun. I'm not when you watch this book.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, we plan to do a Serpentis and Angels event in the summer, so that'll be like where the storyline goes towards the summer. After that, we don't know. It'll depend, because instead of us just saying, oh well, it'd be nice to run, say, an Minotaur arc, we want to make sure we have like content to back it up, in-game stuff that you can actually get involved in, rather than us just picking something and writing about it, pushing out news pieces. I don't think it feels as good. So it'll depend, like there's a lot of teams involved in the direction that gameplay is going, but as you saw announced at the keynote, if you were there, they have plans to do the entire capital line of all the pirate ships, so that will give you some idea of where our storyline direction is going to go.
So we can't expect Project Sky Mother anytime soon.
No Sky Mother. No Sky Mother. Anytime soon.
It's all world ship.
But I mean, sorry. The other thing is that because there's a new team, a new PE team, Team Genesis, that's being the new CCP Dev, CCP Ghost that you saw in the keynote we talked about this, is going to focus on the empires and involving them more strongly in the MPE process, and that will be underpinned by the ongoing empire storyline backdrop. So
I think like one of the most exciting things that's happened in the past few months is that both Nick's new MPE team and my team are going to be integrating storyline much more heavily into our day-to-day jobs rather than it being a side project. So.
Last year you mentioned that you were thinking of making faction warfare a four-way, and I was wondering, now that Tashmir Khan is the Empress, is she going to leverage the money that her and Sauron family have put into the Kaldari stake? Are the Kaldari sort of like flipping her off, saying like they made this deal with Titus Head and with us? Could that be like an angle that could break the alliance?
It's an angle. I mean, it's the same. It's the warning we gave at the beginning, and we kind of can't really answer detailed questions about the future. Unfortunately, much as I know you guys are super
There are some
keen to get into it.
There's some stuff as well we'd absolutely love to talk about, but it's like you don't want to spoil the surprise and don't want to spoil the narrative as well, because I mean, like don't want to wreck it if there's a surprise in the happen.
But are you still thinking on making that happen, like the four-way faction warfare thing? Is that still on the table?
I mean, it's an idea. It might happen at some point in the future. We never talked about it in like concrete terms, so I would still like to, but it very much depends.
Would that ever open up beyond just the immediate faction war zone to be full-out war, do you think, ever?
I don't know about that.
I mean, the breaking the tight alliances between the two blocks, so the Caldari Amarr and the tight alliance, that's an idea that's still around for us, and the four-way war is an idea that's still around, but they're not concepts that we've committed to implementing. But I mean, continue to give us your feedback on those as concepts. I mean.
So I'm a Galenti pilot, and I usually go out in null second, don't RP much. But all the stuff I see for storyline and engagement really seems to focus around Amarr. Is that just because they have much more lore in their backstory, or is it just easier because they're like a singular empire?
It's just been the period that we've been through with the death of Sauron and the Amarr succession trials. Like we had to keep an ongoing narrative going because it would have felt really strange to have like Sauron die and then the first round of the succession trials and then nothing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm just going all the way back because I started in 2007. It just felt like that the Galenti pilots didn't like role play so much. It was a lot more like I'm a normal person in this world that's in that world.
I think maybe from like an RP perspective, not from our perspective, but from a player's perspective who wants to RP, it's sometimes a bit easier to think of something to RP when you're an Amarr player.
Yeah.
They have a very strong backstory that's easy to like identify and run with, and the other ones I think take a little bit more work.
Okay.
We've always had a pretty good core of our RPers too since day one. So
you should also remember as well. I mean, that like there's been a lot of focus on Amarr for what, like the last 6-8 months with the succession trials and stuff. Before that though, I mean, we had massive focus in 2013, 2014 on the Kaldari-Galenti conflict with Kaldari Prime when there was the big event around that. So it ebbs and flows and it chops and changes. Sometimes it's 2 factions, sometimes it's 1. You know, then there was a little bit of sort of Garistas Kaldari stuff that was slipped in that related a little bit to Valkyrie, and there's like, so it chops and changes. But yeah, we generally tend to go through these periods where we'll have like a really strong arc for a given faction, and then it'll like kind of dial back a little bit, then we'll go somewhere else. And then, but I think what will probably happen with the Amarr stuff, I would guess, is it'll wind down over the summer, and then maybe it'll pick up a little bit again. I don't know, coronation time, and then
Coronation will be like
I mean, is there any thought to bring the pirate factions into faction warfare?
There are. I think there's been thoughts about that since the beginning of factional warfare, and understandably so. Nothing that can be committed to. I will say, I mean, this is like a specific case of how it's true what Falcon's saying is that because of resources and bandwidth and so forth, it tends to kind of ebb and flow very strongly with one particular faction or pair of factions. And I will say it's my hope, I hope that with the greater involvement of storyline in-game features through MPE, through Infinity's engagement work, we'll be able to have a more even spread. There will still be pinnacles where I think inevitably where one faction or other is like at the focus of the moment, but more ongoing events and stuff going on with as many of the factions as possible. Our friends in Mercury, who are our volunteers who help us a lot with storyline, and if you're interested in storyline and you're interested in volunteering through the ISP program, Mercury is a great way to help us.
And every time you see Mercury, remember, give them a hug because they bust their balls for us. Really do.
Like they wrote all the new airs.
Yeah.
Yes. We have zero involvement in that other than for free music.
Yeah. It's unbelievable how much ISP assists us. It's like, it's absolutely incredible. Like the level of commitment that these guys have to backstory is phenomenal. So yeah.
Can you give a quick overview
of
that whole thing? As far as
even with Mercury, our writers have certain specialties. So for a long while, we have several Amarr specialists. So if you look at the wiki, a ton of Amarr content, but maybe not so much for some of the other factions. We'd be very happy to get more writers interested.
Why is that? I'm not sure what's going on there. Like especially now that the wiki's official wiki's gone. So like, how does that process work these days?
On that point, I'll just quickly say we are working towards a new fiction portal that'll be specifically for the fiction. I'm kind of leading it, I guess, but I'm responsible with Fantasy Department for that. I would very much like to see that out by the end of June. That's my goal. That's my goal. I think that's very much doable. So on that point, it's not ideal that we've had this hiatus where the Evopedia is gone, and that means that the fiction port is gone. But we're going to have a fiction port. So you will see an official fiction port.
This gentleman here has had his hand up for like 10 minutes or something.
You've also got a guy behind you just in case you didn't
Yeah.
see him.
So I guess I was a little bit surprised when the Drifters were invading the Mithril world. The news coverage was from the Scope, not from the Amarr certified news, the much superior and better news. Will the new coronation be covered by Amarr certified news? Otherwise, what's the lore explanation for allowing Glente reporters access to?
Okay. While we focus on the scope, there is obviously news happening from Amarr certified news and stuff you just aren't getting to see. Like, it's not as if there is not making news anymore. It's just, I think from CCP Loki's point of view, it's easier for him to focus on one news source. But what we're actually going to do now, we're going to pull the scope out of the Federation. They're going to get their independent broadcasting license.
And we're still not going to like them.
The difference is Amarr will have to like them. They're independent.
So I think we did see that it was slightly biased towards the Federation, so we're going to do something about that, like pulling them out of the Federation, giving them their independent broadcasting license. They're just, you might even spin up a new news source in the Federation, and we'll wait and see what happens with that. But yeah, it's more just, I guess, to stop CCP Loki's head exploding and constantly having to pop back and forward.
This is literally the words that I used in the last roundtable interview when people are asking about scope videos. I was like, if we do anything else, CCP Loki's head will explode.
Well, Jamil's coronation video was ACM.
I guess also like the scope report on, like as Falcon was saying, less diplomatically, the facts. So Loki would have to sort of come up with propaganda spins on each angle. It would just be too much.
Just hire him.
Let Pi cover it.
This gentleman right here, Ian.
So there was a brief mention of Arkhambine recently, and it came off as, well, probably not as well as you would have expected. I'm not sure if you saw the video response to that, but it kind of came off as like, yeah, we haven't forgotten about you, but here's one sentence of just stuff.
I don't know, really, it was just a mention of a military contractor. Like, no meaning to it or anything, just a case of we added it in there for a little bit of flavour. There's actually myself, Delegate Zero Infinity, we were talking with CCP Rotati a little while ago about like sort of, it was last week, wasn't it?
Yeah.
About like theming for a new, for Project Nova, now we can actually say the name. And we were talking about like theming it about sort of where it would lead, what the new generation of mercenaries were going to be, where we're going to start fresh. Was it going to be like the next generation of like an evolution of dust mercs? And we were also talking a little bit in depth about sort of the corporations we have within the NPC corporations that are currently type factions. And there's some really colourful ones that CPG Delegate Zero wrote. Like, you know, like Arkhambine, like Entire Direct Action, some really like sort of shady, semi-grey area corporations that I think we really want to preserve. So it's more than likely going to end up the fact that, you know, you'll find that, I would imagine that Project Nova mercs who move over from Dust to Nova and start playing can still have the same allegiances I think the corporations are going to still stick around because some of them have actually been used in Prime Fiction. Some of them are like pretty well referenced in Chronicles and Backstory now, so there's no reason for us to shut them out and not use them anymore.
And you will see some of them used in summer again.
Yep. It's very much all encompassing. I mean, we're also in contact with the team that work on Valkyrie, and we have a little bit of contact with the guys who work on Gunjack, although that's less storyline intensive. So we're trying to roll everything all into one. I mean, you'll have seen mentions of the Kubera in Eve News, the platform that Gunjack is set on. There's mentions of like Dust or Nova corporations in the Eve News as well now, and I think we're going to try and sort of cross-populate as much as we can, because in the end, everything's happening in one universe. So, you know, there are going to be cross-references. Next.
Okay. You're focusing on in-game events to tell the story. Can we expect a book, a next book or something like that?
I think we've got a fair few Chronicles planned.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're planning a number of Chronicles over the next year, or the remainder of this year and into the new year.
I think it was 5.
Yeah. And I think there's a possibility of exploring at some point the ebook route.
Yeah.
But it's kind of early for that. But it's certainly not. It's an option that's on the table. The next kind of tranche of fiction that's most likely for you guys to see will be some sets of chronicles that we're all kind of
as well as
writing.
there is an book coming next summer, the Frigates of Evil Mind. Oh, the Pope is about to grace us with his presence. So there is going to be, can you guys open the door? Because I think it locks from the outside. So yeah, I mean, there's also like,
you can have nice.
Alright.
Son of a bitch.
Alright.
Now we will sit next to the Jermalite.
I will go bathe myself in the sacred waters to purge myself of this heresy upon leaving here.
Please, Amarr, carry yourself home. Make all kinds of people happy.
Anywho, as you were saying, there is a book coming next year, and that's going to have a lot of short stories in it. Affinity, Delicate Zero, myself, CZ Torrey France are all writing short stories to go in it. The gentleman who's just arrived in the room, Max, is also writing some super science-y propulsion-based fiction as well for it.
Very cool,
so that's going to be pretty excellent. We've got an incredible artist working on it, so there's going to be a lot of good stuff in that. And all depending on how that sells, what the return on investment is like. And hopefully in the future we'll be able to do more of them. Something that I know we all enjoy a lot.
I mean more like
a novel again kind of thing.
Temple 1 or something like that.
I mean, we don't really have any plans for any full-scale novels at this stage. It's more sort of like bite-sized looks into the universe kind of things with Chronicles, and through actual events that you guys can interact with, and then sort of the video news that follows through the scope, that kind of thing. But I mean, I'd love to see us write more like that in the future, but right now it's not something we have the bandwidth for really. So it's kind of, I don't think there'll be anything for the foreseeable future we have planned at least.
We keep getting inheritance all the time. Going off the novels, have you thought about doing what 343 did with Halo, where they kind of contracted out to other authors and then published through CCP?
We've kind of already done that in a way with the Valkyrie graphic novel, like the origins of Roundtable.
Just that there'd be more novel content for readers.
Yeah.
There is another company that does have the license.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. We can talk about that later.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I think that would be best question for CCP Torrey fans. He probably can way be better on that. But yeah, I mean, I'd love to see more content in terms of being able to license out fiction, definitely. Just as long as it's the right kind of fiction and it stays, you know, true to its origins, I don't even have a problem with it.
Well, with your Mercury volunteers being so, like as you say, very hands-on, is there any
very prolific as well?
Maybe you could look at, something like that with them. Well, maybe not full-size novels, but for example, the Rufus series was just a series of chronicles that was like released piecemeal. Something such as that might be a good direction to go down as well.
Yeah, I mean there was like Methods of Torture, Black Mountain as well, stuff like that. These are all like chronicle series, but I have no issue with that.
Useful is the episodic content.
And also proofreading is amazing because you get to sit down and read kick-ass stories. So I'm all down for it, definitely.
Just something that occurred to me during the structures presentation. The GTFO, have I missed something? Were there teleporters in the lore previously? Or are they like harnessing wormholes or something? Just answer the first part.
The term teleport is being used pretty loosely in that.
Yeah.
It's not actually used in the description. It's like a localized wormhole.
Right.
Alex said that's this Chinese version. This gentleman right here. There was some. This guy here. I think it's that sounds.
Previously, you used player actions to influence how stuff gets released, like the 3D story. Do you plan to incorporate player actions like drifter space, that players actually go into drifter space and discover stuff to bring the story further to?
I mean, like this guy.
I wasn't one of that. I mean, I was at your presentation and
Yeah, I'm not saying yes that that's what we're going to do, just to make that clear, but we definitely do want to continue to use stuff that Capsuleers do to influence not just storyline, but also the landscape of the universe. No specifics, because that would spoil things, but yeah.
because I think players would actually go out of their way to do incursions into drifter space if there's something to find them and to bring progression to their
literally 1500. Did you?
You should watch the YouTube version of this gentleman's presentation.
And feel free to hit me up. Makoto Priano, Twitter, Tweetly, Slack, in-game, tinfoil. Good stuff.
Yeah, you mentioned a little bit of dust and everything, and I felt like it wasn't very well integrated with Eve, like even with the lore. Like, yes, they have an explanation, but like once you're actually in dust, you don't really feel like you're part of Eve, and you don't really feel like Eve has this whole like atmosphere of your team together. You have to talk to a bunch of people, and in dust, I just felt like yes, you could, but like for a lot of it, I just felt so disconnected from Eve. How much of that are you guys going to actually like deal with in the future with Nova? Because I'm feeling like with the fast time frame for playing, that it's going to be kind of a challenge. Like, is that something you guys are thinking about?
I think that's kind of more of a question for the Nova game design guys upstairs.
Right.
But I mean, in terms of like from my point of view as a player of quite a few FPS games, and then as a player of Eve, I think it's more about sort of the mentality and sort of the mentality, the session length, and the level of interest and the attention span of FPS players. When you sat down and you played Eve, generally your session length is like 3-4 hours minimum, sometimes longer. I mean, I've been known to play back when I was a player. I've been known to play for like 15 hours at a time. There's a lot of stuff really going on that needs my attention.
Right.
An FPS player might on a console might dive in for 30 minutes, an hour, if that. And sort of, I think the focus was more on like just giving the game content within the game, and then there was a few like chronicles, bits of backstory, that kind of thing, actually on the Dust website.
I just felt like the justification when I talked to them about like how the playing was going to work and how that was integrating with Eve, that they didn't really talk about like the justification in the lore very much.
Yeah.
And it's not quite clicking.
Well, a lot of it is still work in progress.
Yeah.
Because you've got to think, Project Nova like isn't greenlit yet. It's still super early stages, as good as it does look.
Yeah, and that's
so
why
it's
I'm
like.
wondering, like, what are you guys thinking
But
about
they
that?
have had meetings with us and they do
Yeah.
care about it, but I think there's that fine line between having enough that it makes sense and us having enough on our end to justify it all, and not blocking any content or putting
Right,
people
yeah.
or
doing, obviously, as a member of the CPM, so there have been talks, and they've spoken openly up there with other people that have asked them in the feedback. The current thinking in terms of getting the lore into the game in a way that's going to be interesting to everyone that's playing it is to put it more in the loading screens, that kind of information, and then make the loading screens dynamic so that they can be regularly updated. That's one of the main ideas that they're thinking about as far as data is concerned. Nova as it is now. So you know, but anything that you have any ideas about in regarding Nova and Dust, just mention to them upstairs, and they're hungry for the information.
Yeah, I have a video on YouTube of a proposal for the lore loading screens. Just look up Aeon Amadi. I'm on Twitter, and you can just look up that video, and you'll see what we were thinking about.
Just tagging on to that, and forgive me because I'm not really big in contact with Mercury or anything like that, but there is definitely a huge amount of Dust players who come and they love the lore, they love Eve's lore as well, and getting into that. And I know one in particular is really set on that. So maybe it's a job for you guys, but how do you submit suggestions? Can you submit suggestions to Mercury or anything like that, or are they purely like a self-contained unit that just does?
Well, we're quite we try to be as aware as possible of sort of what the role players are up to. Almost everyone in Mercury has come from a role playing background in it, and I think we're quite good at listening to the ideas that the community puts forward, and definitely if you guys have ideas, send them to us, or if there's like cool threads of role playing going on, send them to us, and we'd love to read that and just get ideas.
And measure things in Slack.
Yeah, I'm always on
Quick
Slack.
I actually have no idea how long you've had your hand up, because you just like sat down on the floor and I didn't see you.
About 3 years ago, he created a thread on the live events forum about declaring loyalty for various factions. It's been quite a while since the thread's been updated, but it's still sticky.
And you still watch it?
Are you still watching it? Are
Yeah.
you still using it? And is there any cases in the past where you've actually made use of the thread to reach out to various corporations, players, and alliances that wanted to be involved?
This became a thing when back when we had CCP. My mind blanks on what the name is. Goliath, yeah, CCP Goliath, and Affinity Delegate Zero, CCP Eternal was back with us as well. When we had much bigger base of manpower to pull from when we were running these kind of events. It's something we do still reference. I actually still use it for when I'm writing scope tickers. I look at who's allied with who might be like sort of interested to look at what they're doing. Like maybe look for them on the IGS, see if they've posted anything recently, see if there's anything that I can slot into a ticket that's relevant to the stories that are going on. So we are still actively using it. It just hasn't been updated in a while because that's on me. I literally haven't had the time to go through and take
But I also, like, we used to do live events that were very contained, and we would try to get funnel everyone into the same system, and then we would like call like to different
those sites.
like call like to different alliances and stuff. We've kind of moved away from that. Like we're doing like a Crimson Harvest, Operation False Light. We're trying to do like live PvE rather than live
I think it's a good direction that's gone, so it's a bit less.
Yeah, and we do still use that for still videos, stickers, just information because it's nice for us to see who's allied with who. But
certainly,
I'd like CCP Affinity's probably going to strangle me when I say it, but I'd honestly like to have the ability for someone to check a box in the game and display their loyalty.
That'd be fantastic.
Like loyalty to a house in Amarr or loyalty to whatever, but I mean that's just my personal opinion. Like it would take a lot of it's my personal opinion. Like I'd love to be able to like have all my characters show loyalty to road and shipyard, to devolve authorities or whatever. But it's something that it needs it needs UI work, it needs time, it needs to have a reason, there's got to be return on investment. So yeah, I mean we have to look at it more seriously.
On the other hand, I mean one of the thoughts with the NPE is in the very early days, but rather than choose a race and shifting that paradigm conceptually to declare loyalty to an empire. So it almost it's like
Very subtle difference
there's a
there,
subtle
yeah.
distinction, but it allows us to do different things. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, the race doesn't necessarily dictate your loyalty.
That's
You have a
that's
secondary court in part for
that's the thing.
lesser races you want to do. Lesser races. No, meat coonies are allowed in the
we've got-
Oh, good. Yeah, meat coonies counted in Amarr.
Anyway, with the advent of the player-built Stargaze in the probably not so near future, that we have those slipstream gates. Are those still part of the lore, and then will they play a role in?
Can you repeat that? Sorry.
The slipstream gates, the UI gates that connect the hyperdrive.
The hypergates.
Hypergates.
Oh, you mean like the high? You talking about
highway,
highway?
highway,
Super highway.
Yeah. Jesus Christ! Yeah, that takes me back. I think
will they play a role in the event of the new gates that are coming, and are they like still considered in the lore? And next thing, is there any in-game lore reasons why they have not been rebuilt?
Oh, there is actually.
It's not being referenced from what I remember.
Yeah, it's just
I
being
mean,
expense and maintenance. It was just a kind of. I know, go on.
It's a good.
Good job, buddy. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. I remember rightly, we rejigged all the highways and stuff just to control population a little bit more and to like break the trade hubs up, and just
I know the outcome
just to use a little bit more. Yeah.
Well,
they're all nullsec, right? So Concord property and Concord can't even build their own
There's
station.
two different things. There's a smuggler gates and there's a super highway, but yeah.
Because UI used to be a monster. Like it was, at the time it was worth worth what Gita is right now, given the different server infrastructure and whatnot, and the god awful escrow system that used to exist before contract. But I don't think we've actually referenced it in anything. We haven't.
Not lately, no.
You've got.
So I have two questions that are more mechanics rather than detail. How far ahead do you plan normally when you're looking at storyline? And the second question in relation to that is, how much does storyline influence mechanics and gameplay direction, and how much do gameplay direction and mechanics influence storyline?
The first one, like how far ahead do we plan? I think we can plan ahead as far as we like, but it always changes. So
you guys always find a way.
Yeah. I mean, we try to have a very loose, high-level vision rather than a plan. Like this is where we want to take things, but we just wait and see what happens.
Yeah, for practical purposes, it's very difficult to plan beyond a year.
Yeah, it is.
And as far as
Concretely.
like whether storyline dictates gameplay or gameplay dictates storyline, it's a little bit of both. I think on different teams it works different ways. Like for example, 5.0, who deal with our like sandbox style content and the citadels and things. There were we knew Nick created Upwell Consortium. We knew we wanted a consortium or some organization to own citadels, but the actual plan of the citadel came first. Whereas some of the stuff that I do on the live engagement stuff, I tend to plan a storyline before I plan the event. So I guess it just depends on the team and what their main focus is. I find it easier to work with the storyline first and then plan the event and the details after.
And then there are other instances as well with stuff like the Amarr Championships when we really can't plan, because we just we throw you guys in a ring to fight and then the outcome is what happens. And after Fanfest, I suppose we're going to go away and have quite a few meetings and decide what the hell is going to happen now, and exactly where we're going to go with things. But it's so there's a lot of different facets to it. It generally tends to, depending on what you're working on, it tends to change.
I was going to say, over the last 3 months, have you guys been pre-writing any of the Tashmir Khan one, this is what we're going to do, Khador or Corazor one, this is what we're going to do?
We've discussed it, but we haven't really
I'm not pre-writing
going, this could be the outcome, that could be the outcome. And initially at the start, when we had all 6 players in, we had like a rough meeting to discuss, well, what would happen if this guy won, what would happen if this guy won, like just a super high level overview. And then when we got down to 2, we looked in a little bit more depth, and it was like, okay, this will happen here, this will happen here. But we haven't actually put anything down concretely. We wanted to see what the outcome was going to be first. And,
that way there's no lost cause or storyline.
yeah, I mean that way, as well as that, because we're all super busy too, it's not like we've put a load of man hours into something that now no longer exists and is never needed. Because we've got to be super careful with our time management as well.
Speak for yourself, all my carnet plans have gone down.
I'm not sorry.
Yeah, we've got a couple more questions.
Have you ever thought of like, a lot of our peers are trying to get like high faction standing with a group they like. Have you ever thought of like adding like RP rewards for like your high faction stand, like if the Amarr or like the Avatar, like you know, to be able to buy like clothing options from them and stuff?
Don't you still get like a Navy Raven for 10 standings? Or did that go away a long time ago?
I think that might
Still,
still exist, but it's one of those like ancient things that might exist somewhere in the wiki, and you can find a random agent and state.
I mean, a lot of these things would be nice, and it'd be nice to be able to add things like that into the LP stores. Like you have to have this certain standing plus.
Yeah, but sometimes like faction standing doesn't do a whole lot, especially with the jump zone changes. It's like, okay, the villain they shoot me, got it.
It doesn't do much.
Yeah, not really.
There's much momentum behind the PvE roundtable.
So we get a lot of value out of low in-game value items. So an example was back in the day, you used to be able to take slaves and make them freed slaves.
Yeah.
And I don't think that mechanism exists anymore. But there's many people who would actually play that, and so this is like a small game, in my opinion, coding that would take some changes. But it would be nice to be able to take exotic dancers and tourists and make them slaves, and then.
The Turkish dirty bastard.
Put it in the crowd.
From the guy who dislikes slavery.
Can we turn Galente pop stars into slaves? I'd like that to be an item too.
Yeah,
but we
gave,
but
you know, we
gameplay. The Amarr faction, and get rid of all the slaves in one fell swoop, you know?
Yeah.
There are ways to do that.
Yeah,
Elder Fleet
I
mean,
even people taking Maxamaria and having burning ceremonies, you know. This is not a in-game value item, but yet we're having gameplay. So when we define gameplay as PvP, this is, we need recognition. We're underrepresented. That role play is gameplay.
Well, every time I play ship and I see exotic dancers on a kill mail, I'm like, that's great.
I've had milk in my
So we've got time for 2 more questions, so we'll go you first.
On the subject of race doesn't denote loyalty. You make your race at the start of the game with little to no context as to what those races represent or how they play, and then once you figure it out, you're too invested in that speed. What do?
What do is the ultimate question.
I mean, we did have a racial blending talk at one point.
Yeah, like 2 years ago or something.
Oh, this was like 6 months ago.
Yeah, I remember seeing a demo.
Oh yeah.
Way back.
But that's the I'm sure most of you have seen it. We haven't quite released it yet. But the facial augmentation stuff with the blending, like that was part of that whole talk. I'm not saying we're definitely going to do it, but we have at least had conversations about being able to change your race at least 90% of the way.
It's something you should take to the MPE roundtable and talk to Delegate Zero and the new Team Genesis about, definitely. I'm sure they'll be more happy to hear suggestions. Last question?
Okay. Back to the Amarr Championship. We have 6. We had 6 heirs. Yes. To the throne, and I remind Dark that someone who didn't choose to be on the throne must kill herself or himself.
Yeah, the 5 who didn't win.
Yes.
a full Delegate Lee was saying earlier, and Anthony was saying, there's a full new set of Imperial Airs being drafted by Mercury. And
Fantastic job on that, by the way. Those were really good.
And once the old happens to the existing ones, then the new ones will take over. So there'll be like a transition period where they finalise their affairs and stuff, and then things will of course we'll hear about it. Yeah.
Will there be extra precautions to avoid, certain airs, trying to avoid the,
Yeah, we'll just tie into something that'll be alright.
The order of St. Tetron ever
happened once.
If you don't think Hans hasn't been preparing for that for like the last 6 years.
Of those airs, are any of those heads of actual in-game like NPC corporations? Because I know there's been trouble with replacing those in the past, like Karen Midula still being the CEO of the Escort Tribe, something I have brought up before, and you did kind of
We
answer.
can replace them. I just have a lot to do.
Cara Midula is still there in our minds and in our hearts.